And now, we've come to the portion of our show where we have to ask, what just happened? We can't believe it either, but let's take a look back at the insanity that was this week and look ahead to what will make us facepalm next week. This is What Just Happened on the Dean Obeidallah Show. Take it away, Dean.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. What just happened? It's Friday, March 15th. Usually we have a lot of fun. It's a harder day, and we're going to have much more of an earnest conversation in the beginning. Then at some point, my dream is that maybe a half hour in, we can turn this around, turn the ship around, and get to comedy. I'm not sure, but we're not going to force it. In any event, welcoming back to the show, our friend Nida Khan, journalist, writes for various publications. She's been here many times. Nida, nice seeing you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Unfortunately, the circumstances are not great, but it's always fun to be on.
It's great to be here. And my friend Gibran Saleem, he's a comedian. He tours around the country. Just got back from colleges. You may have seen him on Gotham Comedy Live on Access TV or MTV or PBS. Gibran, nice to see you, brother.
Hey, Dean. How's it going? Good to see you.
It's funny. You guys were booked. They're both Muslim. They were booked before today. It just happens to be, what a bizarre thing. We'll never have three Muslims again on the show.
I know.
And that we are here in the worst terrorist attack on Muslims, although not in America, in New Zealand. There's been worse by ISIS against Muslims, let's be honest, around the world.
Pakistan.
But in the West, right, in Pakistan. But in the Western world, this was the worst by a white guy who was a white supremacist killing Muslims for the specific reason of wanting to, as his own manifesto, prevent the invasion and wanted to protect the white race and that kind of garbage. So let me
stop immigrants.
Right. So let me just get your gut reaction. Like, what was your visceral reaction, Nathan, when you saw the news about this and you started taking this in?
So I saw this breaking last night. So it was a combination of sadness and anger, as we were just saying before the show started. So sadness, of course, to all of the innocent people who were killed, the dozens of others who have been injured, and, you know, condolences to their family members, and all of us, we pray for you, and for Muslims around the world who are living in fear. And, you know, Dean and, you know, we've talked about this on your show for a long time about the rise in hate crimes against the Muslim community, against marginalized communities across the board, how this stuff has been fomented by politicians and many people in the media even, and across the board, and how people don't pay attention to it. And we've been warning about something like this happening, and now here we are. So that's why it's a combination of sadness and anger at the same time.
And Gibran, what about you when you first heard the news today?
I heard about this morning. I did not know this happened.
Me? Yeah, I went to sleep and I woke up to the news
I
this
never
morning.
sleep, so.
Okay. So this morning, what was your reaction?
I generally have the same reaction in the sense that a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of confusion, because it's far from home physically, but also close to home emotionally. You know, I have a Muslim background. My family's they're scattered all over the world. No one in New Zealand, and my condolences to everyone out there and the community as a whole. A lot of mixed feelings, and then, you know, and then I go online, I read the news and stuff. I mean, it's sad without a doubt. I think oftentimes there's this misconception with the term extremist and how that's associated with Muslims, brown people. But it's never, I feel like extremists as a whole branch out to so many different ideologies. And no matter what ideology, any form of extremism is unhealthy, and it leads to physical violence and other actions that are just not beneficial or suitable for anyone. And this is just another example, and this is extremism. It's not Islamic extremism.
It's terrorism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's terrorism and it's extremism, but oftentimes you hear extremism associated with Islamic.
Right.
But it's anyone's capable of being extreme, and we need to realize that, so we focus on all forms of extremism and how they can lead to events, unfortunately, like what happened yesterday.
And the flip side is, how many times in America, mainstream media, not us, on like big cable news outlets, do you hear the media use the term white terrorist?
Never. Almost never, I should say.
I mean, Timothy McVeigh was sort of like, that was okay to call him a white terrorist because it was from...
But did they even do that?
I think they did, but he's sort of the only, frankly, there's a hesitance to have someone on as a white to call them, this white person's a terrorist. And I don't
Of
know
course.
why the hesitation in this
There's
country.
not only, so there's a hesitance, but then there's also an eagerness on the flip side when it is a Muslim person or somebody who claims to be Muslim who carries out an act of terror. So, and this is something that I've written and talked about for years, and I blame the media a lot in this for being complicit in exacerbating the stereotypes, in fomenting the image that all Muslims are terrorists, because they're always juxtaposed. It's Muslim terrorists, terrorist Muslims, and you've seen that for years. Even before 9/11, you saw that happening. And when Muslims are only brought into the conversation of when there is a terrorist attack, and most Americans don't know Muslim personally, of course their view is, oh, they're all terrorists. So if this starts to, seep into people's minds for years and years and years, it's no wonder that that's what they believe. And then, like you were just saying, when it is a white guy, let's say, anyone from Timothy McVeigh to, what was his name in the church shooting?
Dylan Roof.
Dylan Roof.
They've never called him a terrorist. I wrote articles at times saying call him a terrorist. And people are like, well, don't calm down there.
Right.
Like, he's a terrorist.
And to the credit of the authorities in New Zealand, they did call this an act of terror.
Yes.
They came out. Whereas when things happen here, there's such a hesitancy, like you said, to do the same. And then it doesn't even happen a lot of the time. So, of course, it's just, the lone deranged individual, and then it's not part of a larger context or a larger problem, which right-wing nationalism is globally. It's all across Europe. It's here in the United States, and to a level that we haven't seen in years and years and years. And it's very dangerous, and people need to focus on it.
And, talking about the media, there was a study by University of Alabama looking at the various years, the last 8 or 9 years. Terrorist attacks committed by Muslim extremists received 357% more coverage than non-Muslims who are involved in extremism. 357% more. And Gibran, on some level, since the media is a business, the brown Muslim sells, and the white terrorist, the brown terrorist who's a scary Muslim guy sells, and the white terrorist makes them uncomfortable or doesn't sell, so they don't do it.
What's scary is these acts like yesterday, these aren't, I don't think, they're not new mentalities. They're old mentalities being activated. So for every attack like yesterday, there's hundreds. I mean, I have no idea the numbers, but there's so many people who feel that way. They're just not taking action. And then when you have incidents like these that start replicating, then it's other people like, oh, I can do this too. Or like, oh yeah, so this is how you do it. I've thought about it, but now I know how, and now I know you could do it successfully. It's just scary because these aren't new ideologies. They're just physical manifestations, which means there's so many other people that you interact with every day throughout the world that feel the same way. They're just not doing it.
And that's kind of scary when you think about someone you might know
scary,
because
for sure
they smile at you, but realize they're one day I'm going to get rid of the son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Or something.
Oh God, don't say that. Well, and to your point, it isn't a new ideology. It's a very old ideology, but like you said, we're seeing a resurgence and a growing of it. So even it's funny because I stumbled upon this interview that I did years ago after the Breivik incident. So I went on BBC and I talked about the rise of right-wing groups in Europe and the U.S. And even at that time, I think it was about 300 groups that the nonprofit organization Hope Not Hate had identified as right-wing nationalist groups. And now you're seeing a proliferation of that even more so. And you're seeing people basically being elected into office and getting into government positions in so many countries in Europe and elsewhere, and amass power that belong to these groups. Like, these groups have been normalized to a level that we haven't seen in a very long time. And that is so scary too.
Do you think it's fair to say that there's a direct line, not at least a line between Donald Trump and the rise of anti-Muslim hate? I mean, I'll just read some of Trump's comments because I hate to play his clips, saying things like Islam hates us. He said that American Muslims cheered in New Jersey on 9/11. He also said, if you have people coming out of mosques with hatred and death in their eyes, we're going to have to do something. And, of course, he called for the total and complete shutdown of Muslims. And in the manifesto of the guy in New Zealand, he literally hailed Trump as a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose. And I'm not sure why the media doesn't make a bigger deal that Trump is being hailed by the gunman who hated Muslims, who was anti-immigrant, just like Donald Trump.
Exactly. Like Trump, fine. Trump is not the one who pulled the trigger, but he is the one who, as the head of this country, and even before that, he has normalized this to a level that we haven't seen either. So like you said, when he was running on the campaign trail, he called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the country, and that was after the San Bernardino attacks. What does he do here after the New Zealand attacks? Oh, I don't think that there's a rise in right-wing groups. It's just a small fragment. And remember, the ban on the Muslims was not just talk on the trail, because it went through, I think it was the third version, was upheld by the United States Supreme Court, effectively banning millions of Muslims from entering the country. So these are actual policies that have been put in place because of things that he said, and other things that he's said and done has resonated with people around the world, like this terrorist in New Zealand.
I think when you have someone in such a high position of power and recognition across the world, it's not just saying something, it's also specifying who you support, who you denounce. And when you lack that specificity, people take it as encouragement. So example, like with some of the things that you were mentioning, like these tweets, or I just assume they're tweets.
Some are tweets, some are words, interviews.
So Trump has no problem mentioning Islam, provided it's under a negative connotation. Now, unless things have changed in the last couple hours, he wouldn't say Muslim.
Nope.
Right.
There was no specificity,
and neither
people
did the
take
White
that.
House. And neither did the White House.
And people, that has an impact. That lack of specifying, like, it really makes waves throughout. The people like this guy, what's his name, Brenton, who pay attention to this stuff, and they take that as a sign of support for his behavior. Yes, exactly. His giant base.
Trump said today that we stand with the people of New Zealand, and we stand in solidarity with New Zealand. We love you, New Zealand. The only people killed are 49 Muslims. He does not. He will not say the word Muslim unless the word ban is afterwards, or he can demonize Muslims and to use them for a policy change.
Yes.
And today he plays down white supremacist terrorism. And the same exact thing after Charlottesville on our own soil, when Heather Heyer was killed by a white supremacist driving a car into her. This is the country we live in, where Donald Trump is openly coddling and emboldening the worst, the very worst of our society.
Yeah, and not only him. So Sarah Sanders, the press secretary, her statement, so the official White House statement, never once mentioned Muslims, didn't mention the word mosque, and of course never mentioned right-wing anything. You can forget about that. But the fact that you can have 49 people slaughtered from one particular religion, and
in their place of worship, they're in their place of worship.
Yes, and there's not even a mention of it. It's just absolutely beyond pathetic and inexcusable. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize, say whatever you want about Trump. This is the place. It is, and
it's so scary.
Do either of you know any American Muslims who support Trump?
I used to know one, but honestly, we couldn't even be cool like after. So this was during the election. Like it just got to the point where I couldn't. I was like, I can't. Like we can, if we run into each other, we could be cool. But I was like, I can't even be friends with you, because the stuff that he was spewing was like the same talking points of Trump. And I was like, how can you, as a brown person, honestly support this? Like I understand having a difference of opinion on certain issues, but there's some places where you just can't cross the line. And to me, I'm sorry, if you're just trying to have it in yourself to advance your own agenda or advance your career, then go do it. But I can't be cool with you.
Gibran, do you know any Muslims who like
I enjoy it when someone has a different perspective on me than things. It doesn't matter if I agree with them or not, because it forces me to think from different angles. I don't think I know any Muslims that support Trump. However, if I did, I doubt they would tell me.
That's the thing, right? They're undercover Trump-supporting Muslims.
Yeah. And they're probably...
We could do a fatwa on them. I mean, I think it would be fair to have fatwas right on them. And
I'm sure there's a lot more Black Americans that also support Trump that are also...
If you look at the 2016, 2018 exit polls, it would say there's like 10%, maybe 8 or 10%, which is the lowest of any demographic. I mean, it's really the lowest by far.
And I think people that do support him they're not specifying it, but they're choosing different things that they like about him and what they don't like about him. So even like I was hearing something about this Brenton Tarrant. I don't know if it was in his manifesto or something. Yeah. When they were interviewing, or they had asked him or read somewhere like, "Do you support Trump?" And he said, "Yeah, but not his policies," which is just contradicting in the same way.
I like his bigotry and his racism. Yeah. I'm just more about renewable energy than he is. I don't think so. Like, that's. It's interesting. He parroted Trump on the words of invasion of the country and white race, although Trump has never said white race. He just says nationalism, not white nationalism. We all know. Everyone knows what he's saying. Like, there's no game. Trump is saying white nationalism. Trump is like thinking in his head, the most people in America are white. I'm going to play to them. That's how you sell a product, like a business guy would.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Jeannie Pirro a little bit. Then at some point, I promise we're going to try to have some fun on what just happened. We'll try to take some calls as well. 866-997-4748. Be right back after this. You're listening to the Dino Bidala Show, where we crush Trump's lies every single day.
On Sirius XM Progress 127.
Your entire week's exhausting news broken down in one hilarious hour. What just happened is now live with Dino Bidala.
And welcome back, Dino Bidala Show. We're live right here Friday, March 15th. We're here with Nida and Gibran Saleem. It's our What Just Happened segment on the third hour on Friday. They both happen to be Muslim. They were booked not for tonight. They were booked for tonight, but not because of the news. So it just happens to be we're having three of us sitting around talking about a horrific terrorist attack by Trump-loving white supremacist in New Zealand that Trump won't even say the word Muslim. Let me ask you a quick question. If this was a Muslim terrorist who walked into a church and killed 49 Christians, how do you think the reaction would be by Donald Trump?
Not only Trump, Anderson
Did you say
Cooper.
Muslim, please? Did you go Muslim, please?
Yeah, right. Anderson Cooper would have been on the first flight over there to do a broadcast live on the ground, okay? Like, the hypocrisy
That's another thing, right?
just never ends. And last night, as this story broke, and this is surprising, I will say Fox News, of all places, actually carried the press conference from the police official last night. And CNN didn't even break into live coverage and just played their reruns of, I think it was Anderson Cooper or whatever was coming on at that time. So just to show you the difference in how these things are handled on a media level is just astronomical. And then you get to politicians and people, everybody is complicit in normalizing Islamophobia for years and years and years. And I want to really quickly read. So this is from, I got these from this journalist at BuzzFeed. His name's Dalal. I forgot his last name.
Okay.
But anyway, so he tweeted out all this great stuff last night about that Republican officials in 49 states have openly attacked Muslims with words and proposed legislation since 2015, and few of them have faced any sort of repercussions.
don't.
So 49 states, basically the entire country.
What's that one state though? I got to go there.
I
That
know,
sounds
right?
like
We need to
I
have
hope it's
that right
Hawaii.
now.
Maybe it's Hawaii.
And then in 28
Texas.
20
Ironically enough.
look, we're throwing in some laughter in here. So in 28 cities and 21 states across the country, people held anti-Sharia rallies. And remember, we had all of those when the Ground Zero Mosque was happening in 2010. So this is not something that just popped up out of nowhere. This has been happening for a very long time. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, Donald Trump is the one who took that and just took it to another level and normalized it to where we are today. And then you see psycho terrorists like this guy latching onto it.
Gibran, if this was a Muslim terrorist killing Christians, how many times do you think Trump would have tweeted by now about? I think he would have had a press conference, an actual press conference just to talk about it.
I think he would have done Instagram posts and all of the above. Oh, without a doubt, it's a good rhetoric meal for the people who aggressively support him.
Fox News would have broken to their already anti-Muslim coverage to do a special anti-Muslim coverage report in the middle of it. They're like, wait, Muslims are really bad. Wait, this isn't. They're even worse than we thought. Let's talk about it. I can only imagine how much Trump would have tweeted today if it was a Christian church killed by a Muslim terrorist, like even in New Zealand. And you're absolutely right. The media would be there, like they went to Paris and Brussels, but they're not going to go. Now, New Zealand is far. I will give you that. But still, even the media cycle, it's going to be gone in a day or two.
For this to be the opposite. Unfortunately,
yes.
For an extreme Muslim crazy man to do this.
Let's take a call or two. We're here with Gibran, Saleem, and Nida Khan. Here is Sherry from Texas with a good point. Sherry, how are you? Sherry.
Hey, Dean.
How are you tonight?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Fine. So you have a very compelling comment here in the notes. It says, so talk to me about what's going on.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge that when we're talking about extremism, the most extreme person currently in the United States is Donald Trump. Okay. So I think that's the first point. My second point is that the United States is one of the biggest producers and consumers of Islamophobia.
And you're right. The industry, the anti-Muslim bigotry industry is here. There are people, I've written about it, who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year selling books, giving lectures, and running for office on anti-Muslim bigotry. It is a money-making institution in America.
Right. And our geopolitics also feeds into this.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I'm from Texas, and I was just talking to my students about this. I teach at a university. My students and I I did a whole lecture on Islamophobia, and we were having a whole conversation about this. So I just had to call in.
No, I appreciate it, Sherry.
That's great.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I love it. Please keep it up.
I'm glad you're waking your students to what's going on in the real world. And yes, that is anti-Muslim bigotry is used to justify policies by the United States government. It's done for a long time now, certainly after 9/11. The war in Iraq was part of that. And, sadly, Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis lost their lives because of using anti-Muslim bigotry to justify a war that we had no business doing.
Actually, a million.
A million
A lot of
Iraqis?
estimates put, there's UN agencies that put it at a million.
Wow.
Iraqis
All right,
killed.
Sherry, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
So what did you think? Jeannie Pirro, I don't know if you know Judge Jeannie, because they have a whole court system at Fox News. You might not be aware of this. She's the
Janine
judge.
Pirro is-
Janine Pirro has a show on Saturdays where she demonizes Muslims. I'm going to play a clip where she's attacking Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who wears a hijab. But listen to her argument, because what she's really getting at, the essence is that if you're a practicing Muslim, then you follow Sharia. Henceforth, therefore, ergo, you cannot be a loyal American. This is the oldest argument in the book, and she does it on national TV on Saturday. A couple of advertisers pulled out, not My Pillow. My Pillow's like we're standing with her because it's a racist pillow.
Tucker Carlson, who's on right now.
Tucker Klansman, we call him.
Called Iraqis, what did he call them? Oh, God.
Primitive and barbaric.
Primitive.
Yes, he's an
something,
asshole.
I forgot the exact phrase.
Tucker Klansman show is on every night on the left side of my. I can look at it. Here, let's hear clip number 3. Is Lauren still there? I can't see in the reflection. Lauren's
She's
there.
yeah.
All right, clip 3, please.
This is not who your party is. Your party is not anti-Israel. She is. Think about this. She's not getting this anti-Israel sentiment doctrine from the Democrat Party. So if it's not rooted in the party, where is she getting it from? Think about it. Omar wears a hijab, which according to the Quran 33:59 tells women to cover so they won't get molested. Is her adherence to this Islamic doctrine indicative of her adherence to Sharia law, which in itself is antithetical to the United States Constitution?
First of all, the hijab.
I don't wear a hijab.
It's a hijab.
That's
Second,
immediately I was stuck on the hijab.
I know. I
She-
forgot my hijab.
She
today.
cites the Quran like she's citing a federal statute. I
Yeah.
cite Quran 33:59, Your Honor.
I love the fact that they actually looked this up. Is that even exactly where it is?
It doesn't say, well, in her
Right.
version, there's a Fox News version of the Quran in the bookshop that Sean Hannity has translated from Arabic to English. So it's
right.
the most ridiculous thing.
She sounds like a conservative F Society from Mr. Robot.
That's funny. And I know Mr. Robot. What do you think of this? To me, is one of the oldest tropes from the right-wing bigots, that if you're a practicing Muslim, you cannot be loyal to America. That's what she's saying at the essence. She has a hijab, and
she's
she's
talking
Sharia,
about
and that blah blah, and she's here, love America, get her out.
And she's talking about an elected Congresswoman. Let's remember that. And it's one of another playbook that they use all the time, that you're not American enough, you're not a real citizen, you can't be loyal. She's not the only one. We've heard this from many, many people. Honestly, there's so many that I can't even keep track of anymore. That's how much this is regurgitated through their echo chamber over and over again. And it's not only Fox News, it's on right-wing radio. And then I think it's also important, I remember I said this before in your show too, to also hold the left accountable for normalizing Islamophobia, right? Like, I've written and talked about Bill Maher a gazillion times and everything
Yes,
that
I
he
have
spews
too.
all the time. Yes, you have too. I think all of us Muslims in media have, because he's been doing the same thing on the left, normalizing it and stating things on his show on a consistent, regular basis. And he's not the only one. There's many people in many places and quote unquote liberal publications and outlets who don't include Muslim voices. You don't have them at the table. And even today, I was like, I really hope that in the conversation about this, we will actually see Muslims who are part of the dialogue, because that's part of the problem too, because that further dehumanizes them, because if they're not brought in, if they're only brought in when there's a terrorist attack perpetrated by Muslims, then that's of course again what people think. So you need to include them in all facets of society in order to humanize them. Muslims have been devalued across the board, and this is why we are where we are too.
Hey, Gibran, have you ever gotten a hate mail as a comedian from someone about being? They see your name and you're brown and Muslimish. I mean, have you ever gotten stuff at all?
I don't know if it's. I definitely received lots of hate throughout my life. I don't think it was related to my comedy.
Just personal,
yeah.
just about you, something you had done.
There's definitely hate about my comedy, but they've at least learned to differentiate the jokes from the person. I've received a lot of stuff. I think what happens, like, what is this lady's name?
Janine Pirro.
Janine
Pirro.
Judge Jeannie.
I think what she's doing, she's making very somewhat arbitrary, extreme associations that her audience isn't going to do the due diligence to read between those associations. So you could just make any association. I'm wearing a red T-shirt. The third-rate Nazi logo stuff is red. You could just be like, oh, Gibran supports this because he's wearing red. No.
Right.
But if someone even looked at me, listened to what I said, they were just like, no, that's not. What are you talking about? But it's for the people who aren't reading between these associations that are like, oh, she makes a great point.
Sure.
A equals B equals Z.
Or
which
barely
is not,
reading.
Yeah.
Or that was, she did like an old school sort of like syllogism or something you see in the LASAT for law school admission test, where it's like the A, B, and C.
Right.
And here's the truth. There's 49 Muslims killed in a terrorist attack. And just 2 minutes ago on Fox News, what were they covering? And I'm not kidding, folks. Hillary Clinton's emails, Hillary Clinton 2.0, because Lindsey Graham saying, we got to find her emails because Trump told me I got to say this stuff. All right. Go ahead.
But on the Janine Pirro point and what the caller said too, I forgot her name.
Sherry.
But that this is a huge, $1 million industry, Islamophobia is, and also the point about how it has. You made that great point about the Iraq War and foreign policy, and in the context of what's happening here with immigration. So because so many of these countries have been destabilized from war, from other things that have been happening on the ground, and war that we have greatly contributed to in a lot of these countries, those refugees and immigrants, since the last couple of years, they've been spilling into Europe. Now you're seeing the backlash against them. So the poor innocent people who were killed in New Zealand, many of them were refugees.
Yes, I
even.
know.
So it's like, imagine you're escaping the most dire situations and circumstances just to be slaughtered in this other country. And just that dynamic in and of itself is so crazy that we contribute to the destabilization of these countries. They come into Western countries and then they're the victims of hate crimes and subjected to all this stuff. It's just insane.
I did a show a long time ago, and
Was I in the show?
you were not.
Okay, then I don't wanna
Thankfully,
hear
you
back.
were not. You
Go
did
ahead.
not want to be.
All right.
And I say up top, I'm like, I look kind of like if, and then I say some other things. And before I finish my sentence, first line that I say on stage, and a girl in the front rows, I look kind of like if, and she says terrorist.
What?
Out loud, audience hears it, meaning I have to address it. But that's her association with a brown dude with some stubble. And when you
Right.
see that on the news, when you're associating terrorism with this, that's what comes to people's minds
Yeah.
because they don't have any neutral, positive comparisons.
How did you respond?
I was newer in comedy.
It's always tougher, yeah.
I asked her to say it into the microphone
that
so
was
that
good.
the entire audience could hear what
Did she
she
say
had
it?
said. I'm trying to think. She didn't, so I repeated it. I kind of shamed her, but it's
Good for
very
you.
difficult to come back comedically from that, especially when you're earlier on in comedy.
That's the truth. When you're doing it for a while, you'll come up with things. Or you've
oh yeah,
seen
for
things.
sure, for
And
sure.
As simple as like, let me count down from 10 out loud, and or something, just to scare her. And
Yeah.
you just have fun with it.
But
It's
but
remarkable.
it's so dangerous. Like and like days like this, I don't know. I end up internalizing some of it too because of what happened to my dad. Like I talked about this on your show, and just like the way that he died and the othering of him, and all of this has real life consequences. Like it's not only
Yeah.
when these horrible incidents happen, it's how you view people whose life is valued, who's seen as a human, who receives care, who's treated a certain way, and who there's negative stereotypes and what preconceived notions about.
And even we were talking about this the other night on this show. We had someone from Planned Parenthood about the black mortality rate for women giving birth. It's like 3 times higher having pregnancy and dying if you're black than white in America. 3 times. That's criminal. That's just that literally should be a crime. I mean, someone should be prosecuted for manslaughter for that. That's off the charts and unacceptable in the United States of America.
Yeah.
It happens. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna play a little game called Guess Who Said It right here on the Dino Bidala Show. Be right back. At this point, the question is not who connected to Donald Trump is a criminal. The question is anyone connected to Donald Trump who's not a criminal?
The Dean Obidala Show. Sirius XM Progress. You're listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dean Obidala.
And welcome back, Dean Obidala Show. We're live. What just happened? We're here with our friend Gibran. Saleem is a comedian and Nida Khan. So it's time to play our game within the game, right, Lauren?
Now, it's time for America's newest game show sensation.
Guess who's done it?
All right, guys. So I'm going to give you. We have 4 of them because one of them we can't do because one of them is actually the clip we played of Janine Pirro. But I'll read you either a tweet or a comment and give you 4 options. You try to guess. See what happens. There's no real prize. It's just fun. You ready? Here's a tweet. I think someone should run just because Republicans ought to be given a choice. It's hard to beat a sitting president, but to have a conversation about what is to be a conservative, I think that's important. Was that said by Mike Pompeo, Jeb Bush, Lindsey Graham, or Michael Cohen?
Michael Cohen.
It goes quickly for Cohen.
No. Can you read it again real quick? Sorry.
I think someone should run just because Republicans ought to be given a choice. It's hard to beat a sitting president, but to have a conversation about what it is to be a conservative, I think is important. Mike Pompeo, Jeb Bush, Lindsey Graham, Michael Cohen.
It's probably not Michael.
What was the choices again?
Mike Pompeo, Jeb Bush, Lindsey Graham, Michael Cohen.
I think it was Lindsey
Michael
Graham.
Cohen.
I think it's Lindsey Graham. No?
Bush?
Bush?
Wrong. It was Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I thought Bush might have been too obvious, so I was like, let me go with Graham.
And here's another one.
There was no
Here's one about the
strategy behind my
college
answer.
scandal.
I should have said.
Here's one about the college scandal. Ready? The parents are rich and famous, the very people, the elites who tell us how to live, how we are all deplorables. I don't want to hear another moral lecture from Hollywood. Was that Steve Doocy, who's from The Morning Show on Fox and White
Douchey?
Friends? I call him Doocy.
Okay.
Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, or Stuart Varney?
The Olsen twins.
Ingram or Hannity. All right.
What is the quote again?
The parents are rich and famous, the very people, the elites who tell us how to live, how we are all deplorables. I don't want to hear another moral lecture from Hollywood because Hollywood's always morally lecturing.
Right, because that's all they do.
Steve
All right, we'll go with
Doocy, Hannity, Ingraham.
Hannity.
And what did you say?
Wrong.
Sorry, you guys are
Was
not.
it Lindsey Graham?
Stuart. No,
I mean,
he wasn't
Lindsey
even one of the 4.
I mean,
It wasn't?
Laura
Stuart
Ingram.
Varney.
Oh, damn.
So that was a.
All right, here goes another one. Here we go.
We're still, it was
Yeah.
a serious, it was a
Here-
long day.
Here's a tweet. No,
Okay.
believe me, I get it.
I'm not.
Here's a
I need
tweet.
to think critically.
Ready? You guys ready? Here we go. At first, I thought of saying, imagine being told your house of faith isn't safe anymore. But I couldn't say imagine because of Charleston, Pittsburgh, Sutherland Springs. What good are your thoughts and prayers when they don't even keep the pews safe? Was that Cortez or Ayanna Presley?
I think that was AOC.
I want to agree.
You want to agree?
Yeah,
Well, you got one right.
We won.
All right, last one. The fake Melania. Did you see the fake Melania conspiracy?
Yes.
It was on Twitter. It was
No.
That was so
it looked like
ridiculous.
it wasn't her, but I think they made a fake picture to make it look. So whenever
I think it was just like
What-
the facial expression she had didn't look like
what
her.
is it?
Didn't
Was
look
she
like-
wearing a new Zara outfit?
made everybody made this thing that it wasn't, that it was like a body double and not really Melania because her expression was different or whatever. It
that
was
there's
ridiculous.
like a Melania clone in public.
Right.
Here we
Pretty
go.
much. That's what
Okay,
Her name
when
is
you're in,
Ivanka.
so who said this on the fake Melania? When you're in college or high school, there's that pretty girl who is nice, and you go with the marker to mark up her locker, and then you gossip about her. You call her names. That is what these adult women were doing to the first lady. Rush Limbaugh, Candace Owens, Ivanka Trump, or Tammy Bruce said that. When you're in college or high school, there's the pretty girl who's nice, and you go with a marker to mark up her locker, and then you gossip about her and call her names. That's what these adult women were doing to the first lady.
What high school did they go to?
Mean Girls.
I didn't go to
Tina
that
Fey?
high school.
What are the choices
I was
again?
the girl that they marked up on the.
Rush Limbaugh, Candace Owens, Ivanka Trump, or Tammy Bruce.
Candace Owens.
Candace Owens.
No,
Wrong.
it was Tammy Bruce, which was a tough one because Tammy Bruce is just a conservative radio host who goes on.
I don't
Fox
even know who
News.
Tammy Bruce is.
She's
I feel like I'm the
nobody.
least
She's
You're not missing
critical
nobody.
anything.
that I've ever.
You're not missing anything. We got one right.
You
Yay.
did
Yeah,
that, and
we did.
I feel pretty good about
Yeah.
that. So I want to talk about. Have you been following Gibran, Beto O'Rourke? You know who Beto O'Rourke is?
A little bit.
Democrat
I
running-
was confused about the name thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
his
I
name
wasn't I didn't-
is his real name is Robert Francis,
Uh-huh.
but since he
Robert
was a child,
or Roberto?
See, he grew up in a Latino neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so he took the name Beto, which is the nickname for Roberto, since he's
Yeah.
been a kid. It's all
Yeah.
documented. Well, what I found interesting was that Fox News trying to attack him by trying to white him, trying to make him white because they're concerned. So here's a Hogan Gidley, who is Sarah Huckabee's second in command in the White House, talking on Fox News, correcting the anchor who said Beto by him saying it's not Beto. Here's clip number 8. This is remarkable stuff.
Beto O'Rourke is now in the game for the Democratic primary. What's the president think about that?
Well, first of all, you pronounced it wrong. It's Robert Francis. That's number one. Number two, we don't care who gets in the race. The fact is the president's going to win re-election.
So they don't want people to call Beto a Spanish nickname. They want him to call him. This might be the first time Trump is trying to make someone whiter and more Christian.
Well, I think obviously they want to take away his minority vote.
Right.
But maybe they'll get the other vote. I don't think that'll be the case, but
isn't it remarkable when you think about usually what they do to delegitimize you is, like Trump has said, Obama is from Kenya or Muslim,
right?
Yeah.
Or Maxine Waters is low IQ and this kind of stuff.
Right.
In this one, they are trying to whiten him. They're trying to de-Latino him. I've never seen this. This is stunning to me.
It's shocking. And, because they know that, well, they're also trying to play into, I should say, the whole Democrats only care about identity politics. And this is why Beto is not really Beto and he's a white guy and he's just trying to get the minority vote, but he doesn't really care about them.
Elizabeth
so they're
Warren
trying to,
him.
yeah, pretty much what Trump did to her. Exactly.
But he's not claiming he's Latino.
Which, yes.
Right.
That's the hard thing. It's not like he's like, I'm not Latino. I'm just, that's what we call ourselves a kid.
But in essence, they're doing the same thing.
What is O'Rourke compared
really
to
Irish,
Francis?
very Irish. Robert Francis O'Rourke. It's just really Irish.
Oh, his middle name is Francis.
Right, Robert Francis O'Rourke. And he looks like a Kenny. He reminds me of Bobby Kennedy.
Exactly. In
fact, they interviewed Congressman Joe Kennedy, who is a Kennedy, who said when they're together, people think Beto's the Kennedy, and they don't think. But
that's funny.
So, all right, let's take a break. We'll come back. One more break here. What just happened? Our weekly segment. Be right back.
The Dean Ovidala Show.
My slogan for Trump in 2020, Trump for prison 2020.
SiriusXM Progress. listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dino Bidala.
And welcome back. I'm everyone's favorite host, according to the announcement that we paid to make that. Dino Bidala, we're live right here on Friday, March 15th. Look, folks, at the end of the long day, and we were just talking about food here with my friend Gibran. Long day, you get home, you're hungry, and what are you going to eat? Well, you can try to throw something together, but there's always some ingredient missing, and sometimes doesn't turn out well. Well, how about trying HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit? You pick the recipe the week before online, either individual size, family size, vegetarian, meat, fish, whatever you want, they've got it there for you. And it's sent to you in a box, and every single thing you need to cook that meal in a delicious way is waiting for you. The entree, the side dish, the spices, and a recipe book. You might say, I can't cook. It's like a coloring book. That's how simple it is. I've used it myself to cook all the different meals, from meatloaf to the chipotle spice steak to the glazed salmon. You want it, they have it. And right now you can try $20 off your first 3 boxes, saving you $60, which is like trying it for free. Go to HelloFresh.com/Dean. That's HELLO Fresh.com/Dean. You got to use the /Dean to get the deal. Try it out. They're delicious meals for you, your family, any type. They've got it. HelloFresh.com/Dean. All right, my friend. So let's talk about.
I always wanted to try it, so I will now.
It's very good. It's actually really good. I'm not kidding. So here, let's talk about the college scandal. Let's have Stephen Colbert, though, take us into it. Here's clip number 4. He did a quick joke on it the other night on the college scandal.
Huge scandal rocking the news cycle today, and it has to do with higher education, right? So Donald Trump is not involved. Sort of refreshing. Yeah. In a horrible way. You know how conspiracy theorists say everything is rigged for the wealthy and famous? Well, as a wealthy, famous person, let me just respond by saying, you're absolutely right.
So the wealthy and famous. So this massive scandal where over 50 parents were charged, including Aunt Becky, Laura Loughlin, and Felicity Huffman, to get their kids in the school by paying essentially, turned out like bribes, and they did tax fraud and all that. First of all, did you think it would be Aunt Becky or Uncle Jesse? Like, who are you counting?
Wasn't she the one who paid like $500,000 or something ridiculous?
Her and Massimo, her husband,
you know,
the
Massimo.
designer. He used to sell stuff at Target.
Oh, really?
Massimo used to be like a Target house brand.
And then he was using his money. What did you? Was this just white privilege on steroids? I mean, this is off the charts.
But my question is, how little faith do you have to have in your kids to be willing to pay $500,000 to get them in? I mean, it's just insane.
Or do you know your kids well? I mean, you know your kids. This kid's a dope one.
I don't think it was a matter of faith. It was a matter of being objective.
Actually knowing my kids.
Yeah.
Like, I like my kid to go to school.
But in all seriousness.
What if her kids didn't even fill out the application?
See, there you go. But in all seriousness, though, it really does talk about privilege and also privilege that's placed on these institutions and the value that's placed on them. That, you know, your child must go there. You must have this name in order to excel to this level in society, to have that recognition, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on and on and on. And there's too much emphasis placed on that. And then there's not enough opportunities given to other children who come from other backgrounds, who aren't privileged, who aren't wealthy. And it just says a lot about society in and of itself.
Very interesting. Gibran, did you cheat your way into college? Where'd you go to school?
I went to VCU undergrad, and then I went to grad school at NYU.
All right, cool.
Why USC? I don't know that much about. I'm like, if you're gonna drop $500 million.
$500,000.
Where did you go?
Stanford is pretty close.
I went to Fordham, and what broke my heart is that no one cheated their way to get in my college. Like, the acceptance rate's a little easier to get in.
That you know of, Dean.
But it wasn't
be surprised.
Me either. I went to Rutgers.
Did you know when you were going to college and applying for SATs, taking the SATs, had you heard about anyone who had someone else take the SAT for them? Because I did hear rumors about that when I was younger. And I don't know if it was true. Now, clearly,
I think I remember hearing rumors, too, but I never knew anybody personally. I don't know.
I didn't know any. No, I would. If I knew that was a job you could have, I wouldn't be doing comedy. I'd be doing SATs full time.
How hard would it be, though? I mean, if your kid, you sneak them into a really good school, and then they're in a really good school, and they don't like school, and they don't like books, and they're not really bright. How are they going to survive? How are they going to get the degree? Like, how do you make it through? You keep bribing people their entire 4 years?
They're going to become social media influencers, Dan.
There you go.
That's exactly what I inspired to do. And now what's remarkable is parents have filed a lawsuit against Laura Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, as well as other parents, saying their kids couldn't get into these schools because these wealthy people were bribing them.
Spot.
And I don't know if there's a really good cause of action, but I think it's really interesting.
I think there's another thing here that's through the lines of all of this. Colleges in America, I don't know how internationally, they're corporations at this point. There's that much money involved they can foster positions that pay to sneak someone else into college.
Right.
And they're pliable to receiving bribes and stuff within the institution as well as outside the institution.
Not to mention the exorbitant costs to attend college in and of itself. So that's why student loans have outpaced credit card debt. I mean, that's just
Gibran
crazy.
was just performing at a college last night or a couple nights ago or a few nights ago.
I think it was
Have you ever been in a college that's in the middle of nowhere? It's not like ranked anything. And you're like, how much does it go to school here? And they go like $60,000. Like, what? Your parents are getting ripped
That's
off.
the low end.
Right. It's not like if you're spending, and it's true now, you go to colleges where our school with boarding is like $80,000 or $90,000 a year. And you're like, oh my gosh, how can anyone afford this?
It's insane.
Yeah. Student loans.
Student loans or the
private
wealthy,
loans or
the wealthy can
or
only
that.
go to college. That's not there are state schools that's a little bit better. I get it.
Yeah, I automatically think student loans, but yeah.
And
the wealthy parents, I'm neglecting that if I had a
Felicity
I'm
Huffman.
still paying off my student loans. It never
Are you
ends.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have student
Likewise,
loans too?
for sure.
Well, you went to grad
NYU,
school too.
yeah, without a doubt. NYU is expensive. I was an idiot too. I wish I knew.
Did you get a degree, the postgraduate degree?
I did. I got a master's in psychology.
Has it helped this segment you did tonight here? Or did it help your comedy?
It was all worth it for this.
It helped with the heckler. The heckler who called him a terrorist.
Yes, because that was near NYU.
To me, the JD, the law degree I have, even though I don't use it to sue people or anything, it actually helps me in life. Like it really does. That's different. But I'm sure your education helps both of you.
Well, I'd like to think my journalism degree does
know.
help in what I do.
I don't think mine does, but it was intellectually satisfying.
So, all right, my friends, I want to thank Gibran and Nitha for being here. Where can people follow you on Twitter?
Thank you for having us. It's Nidakhan NY, so it's NIDAKHAN NY.
I'm at Gibran Saleem on all social medias. That's G as in giant, I, B as in Bob, R-A, N as in Nancy, SALEE, M as in Mary.
And thank you both. Thanks, Lauren and Matt, for doing an amazing job this week. And folks, I'm on Twitter. Again, thank you. People email me during the show to express support and sympathy, and I truly appreciate it. Over the weekend, I'll still be there on email, dean@deanofradio.com, or on Twitter, @DeanObidala. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks for your support. I truly, sincerely appreciate it. Have a great weekend.